A lot of research showing that people learn best when they themselves become teachers and when they work interactively in a hands-on kind of way. And also research showing that people learn well with empirical feedback. So we designed a project that combined all three of those elements to help students become more expert at debiasing their own as well as others' judgments and decisions. We always began by having students complete a decision exercise. And in this exercise, there's usually 3 people who are depicted. And for example, they might be 3 surgeons. And each surgeon is described just the way they would be on a regular website in real life. So you see a little picture about a surgeon and description of the surgeon. And then the participant, or student in this case, has to decide which surgeon they would like to see, imagining that they needed a particular kind of surgery, like foot surgery. Now, we ahead of time have inserted key diagnostic information into the description of each surgeon so that a person reading it can tell which surgeon is likely to have the best success rate. And that's what we call in decision theory a diagnostic or normative cue. It's the cue we want them to use. It's the one that helps them maximize their expected value. Then we also embedded a bunch of non-diagnostic distractor cues that often lead people to make biased choices. And these are things like what the person looks like, their race, their class, their ethnicity, their religion, and really every judgment and decision-making bias we could possibly load into it. Things like order effects, the order in which different information appears. And so what we found is that most respondents ended up choosing a surgeon who looked like the American stereotype of what a surgeon looks like, a Caucasian male. But in fact, that surgeon did not have the best expected value or success rate. And so then we revealed the data to students, and they saw for themselves that they had kind of fallen into this trap. And what's nice about this exercise is that regardless of what your views are politically about affirmative action or no affirmative action, everyone agrees that there is a right way, there is a right choice, and that you shouldn't be using something like race to make the choice. You should be using who has the best success rate. So that's just the first part of the task. Once people see their own responses and they see that the class as a whole has made a suboptimal choice, they feel highly motivated to want to correct it and to want to teach others how to avoid it. So that's when the real innovation comes in. And essentially what we do is we give them the opportunity to first identify all of the biases that are embedded within the task. They have to name each one and define each one. And then they have to design what we call choice architecture. It's a term borrowed by Cass Sunstein and Richard Thaler's book, where it's just a small piece of information that helps other new respondents to make a rational choice or a choice that maximizes expected value.
Amazon Mechanical Turk is this online marketplace where you have somewhere between probably 10 and 50,000 individuals a day who are in this marketplace who are taking surveys of all different types. Some of them are serving as validation for machine learning algorithms. Others are psychology experiments. So ours is just one of hundreds, if not thousands, that are on there that individuals are paid to take the survey. And that's broadly nationally representative with a few differences.
Students are split into teams. Each team, after listing all of the decision biases that are embedded within the scenario, work together to create a kind of choice architecture that will be used in a real-world scenario, actually run online on Turk, to try to debias participants in that activity online. So they come up with a lot of different ways of doing this. Sometimes they'll include some sort of table to try to teach people how to calculate an expected value through numbers. Sometimes they'll tell people don't consider the race of a doctor, that shouldn't matter, or the gender of a doctor, that shouldn't matter. And they'll decide as a group which method they think will be the best way to debias these people online. And we will try to coach them through that.
What the Hilt money has enabled us to do is kind of systematize a whole set of aha moments, because there are a number of these moments as you kind of unfold the exercise with students, where there's the first aha where it's not such a good aha. People are like, ooh, I made a bad choice. And then there's the, I get to try to fix this. And then there's the good aha, where they see how well they did, and they say, oh, so this worked better than that. And then there's even another aha, which is they see what other teams did. And so that's really, I would say, the third aha. And then the last aha, actually, it occurs to me, they don't necessarily see for themselves, but we try to, at a meta level, encourage them to understand that they can use this kind of process for testing their assumptions empirically in whatever setting they're in. And so we use this with executive education students as well as Harvard enrolled students to help them think about, they don't have to just hold on to their existing beliefs about what creates change, but actually submit them to empirical tests.
So we began this project before the Hilt funding in executive education, and we had one scenario where we were having participants choose a surgeon, but we had this idea that this isn't just about choosing a surgeon, this can be about any choice where there's kind of a correct answer that people aren't getting to. And what Hilt allowed us to do, and what the reason we applied, was we wanted to move this beyond executive education to our degree program classes, where we have undergrads, MDs, people from the School of Public Health, the business school, and then test this across a whole host of different scenarios, so not just surgeons. And what Hilt funding allowed us to do was test this idea and see how it could move beyond just executive education in this one scenario to a whole host of different types of students in a whole host of different scenarios, and really expand the exercise and grow it.
Without the structure that Hilt brings and the funding that Hilt brings, we probably wouldn't press ourselves to really think hard about what are the key learning mechanisms here, and what is exportable, what is generalizable, what isn't, where are the weak points. And we also certainly would never have had a coach to help us have an outside perspective on it.